What a delightful setup for a talk about quality, a talk about joy. Yeah, I'm the guy who delivered a business book to the world that has the words joy and love on the cover. I will tell you that is a very vulnerable moment when you do that. You don't know whether the world will take you seriously. And I was prepared in coming here to deliver a very impassioned and standard talk about joy in the workplace. And much like sometimes a speaker just takes their prepared remarks and throws them away and says, nope, I'm going to do something different. This, for me, is a very special crowd and a very special place. So I am delighted to be here with all of you. And I wanted to focus this presentation specifically on quality, and you'll see why in a little bit, why this is so important to me. Before we dive into my presentation, I want to give you a 90-second peek into the company that I'm going to talk about, the company I co-founded. This is a book trailer. My intention, well, you are welcome to go buy the book. If the trailer, sort of encourages you to do that, awesome, but that's not the reason I'm showing it to you. In the spirit of if a picture's worth 1,000 words, a video is probably infinity, this 90-second peek into Menlo will at least give you a sense of the other things I'm going to talk about. Most organizations don't really spend much time thinking about their culture. Most organizations operate in chaos. Everyone wants to work on something that's bigger than themselves. I did. I started out in an industry that I was very excited about. Very quickly, I hit a trough of disillusionment. And by 1997, when I was promoted to vice president of product development, I wanted out. I wanted to get as far away from this industry as I could. And then in that moment, I decided to change the industry. And that's the story that I've captured in this book. People are coming from all over the planet to come visit this space that's in the basement of a parking structure in downtown Ann Arbor, Michigan. And they're coming for a reason. They're coming to see something. What most people are looking for is some lessons around what it takes to build an intentionally joyful culture. Imagine half of my team had joy and the other half didn't. Which half would you want working on your project? We had so many requests for these tours, we realized it was time to share this story with the world in a different way. And that's how the book came to me. The space is flexible. We work 2 to a computer. We assign these pairs. We switch them every 5 working days. The human energy that results from this kind of organization, you can actually feel the joy when you're in the room. My name is Richard Sheridan, and I'm the author of Joy, Inc. I ran down to Powell's. It's not available, so you're going to have to order it online from somewhere. All right. So before I dive into the meat, I want to give you a little bit of background on me because I think it's important to me at least that you understand my life story. But I think it's important to the context of the presentation and even why I'm here with you today. So I started out life as a programmer way back in 1971. I was just a kid in high school then, and I typed a 2-line program into a computer, and I typed the word run, and it came back in a roll of paper because that's how they worked back in 1971, and it clacked out hi Rich because that's what I told it to do. And in that moment, I was hooked. I knew what I wanted to do the rest of my days. I just turned 60 this year. I'm still in the software profession, so I think I've officially decided, but my kids were stunned. They're like, seriously, Dad, you decided at 13 what you're going to do the rest of your days. Yes, I did. By 1973, I'd won an international programming contest. Dan Cook and I had a great discussion about this because it was essentially fantasy baseball. I typed the entire baseball register into the computer so my friends and I in cold winter Michigan months could play our favorite teams against one another by picking our lineups and having the computer play baseball in front of our eyes. It was delightful. That won me an international programming contest that launched a career because later that year, the people who were supplying us the compute power wanted to find the kid who won the contest and said, do you want to work for us? And I said, doing what? And they said, programming. I'm like, you get paid for this? And they're like, yeah. And I said, how much? And they said, $3 an hour. And I'm like, are you kidding me? That's $1 an hour more than I'm making as a dishwasher at Big Boy right now. This is awesome, right? And so that launched my career. I went on to create the first email system that the Macomb County schools, where I was a programmer, where I was a student, would see. So, you know, fantasy baseball, email. My life is littered with lost opportunities, okay? So anyways, I kept working. I worked right through high school graduation, and then finally decided I needed an official degree in this stuff, so I went to the University of Michigan. Yes, I'm a little sad this morning, or this afternoon, from what happened last weekend, but we won't talk about football right now. But in any event, got 2 degrees in computer science and computer engineering. By 1982, my career's launched. I'm out in the world. I am qualified, I'm excited, I've got a degree from a good university, and quite frankly, this was the advent of computing, wasn't it? I mean, yes, there were mainframe computers and that sort of thing, but in 1982, we went from the world where Ken Olsen said there might only be need for 4 computers on the planet, to Bill Gates telling us there's going to be one on every desktop. I think Bill Gates won the argument. And from that day of graduation through a good number of years following that, I had career success. Everything the world would tell you what was success, I had. And sorry, Molly, are you here? Yes. Awesome. You might have to come up and give the rest of my talk for me. Not sure what just happened to my voice. Let me try one more drink here. So, yeah, everything the world would tell you is success, I had. Greater titles, authority, stock options, pay, office size, team size, all that stuff the world measures as success. Boom, I had it. Nice, beautiful straight line career growth. My wife was absolutely delighted for the wonderful choice she made in a, provider husband. And yet there was one significant problem. I was falling out of love with the profession I had chosen. It was betraying me. And I didn't know at this point, in my mid-30s, I looked ahead and I said, I can't do this for another 30 years. I was actually contemplating getting out of the industry entirely. And my escape route was to start a canoe camp in the boundary waters of Minnesota. The women always laugh the same way, just like my wife does. She's like, really? Did you think the girls and I would follow you with 3 daughters? No, honey, I didn't. But I needed to get out. And so I was trapped. I was scared. I didn't know what I was going to do the rest of my days because this is the only thing I really knew how to do. So what was going on down here? Well, what was going on is probably maybe a familiar scene for a lot of you. I was experiencing the chaos of our industry. Chaos in the software industry is actually quite trivial to imagine. You come in every morning, there's fires blazing away, the phones are ringing off with problems, you're missing deadlines, you're blowing budgets, meetings aren't going well, everybody's frustrated, and users are frustrated, deadlines are missed, salespeople can't sell the products you're building, and even when they do sell them, support can't support them, and problems galore. And my days were long. I was spending lots of time away from the family that I loved. I would come home after long days, cold dinner in the microwave, ready for heating. My wife would look at me and say, honey, you look really tired. Did you get a lot done today? And I'd be like, no, I got nothing done today. I worked hard. I was busy from one end of the day to the other. I got a lot of stuff started, but absolutely nothing done. And in that world, things go bump in the night, don't they? There are negative events that occur inside of our organizations. I had lots of them. The one I write about in the book was not mine, but it was a big one. It was the problem that a retired programmer at Knight Capital Group created on their New York Stock Exchange trading platform in New York City. And after he installed the server updates, he did it one thing incorrectly, and in the next 45 minutes, that trading platform traded $7 billion worth of securities it wasn't supposed to, costing Knight Capital Group $400 million in 45 minutes. Are you with me? Would that be considered a negative event where you work? Okay. Yeah. And you know, there's an old saying in computing, to err is human, but to really foul things up requires a computer, right? And so when there's a negative event, you know what happens. There's an organizational response. It often looks like a big, thick binder, right? A software development lifecycle binder filled with no value add, templated documents, stage gates, committees, sign-offs, policies, procedures, meeting sequence, all this kind of stuff. You actually have to put a police force in charge of it. And you go from chaos to full-blown bureaucracy. You go from the land of not getting anything done to the land of never getting anything started. And yet still have to do stuff. And so shadow groups form. You learn to placate the bureaucracy while working around the system, don't you? And so now you're operating in chaos and bureaucracy simultaneously. This is my life. By my mid-30s, this was my life. And I couldn't imagine doing it for another 30 years. I couldn't imagine carrying out the rest of my career. Now, I will tell you, if your organization was anything like the kind I was leading and growing along and eventually becoming vice president, because the weird thing was, in spite of all of this, they were promoting me. They were like, oh, you're doing a great job. I'm like, no, I'm not. Well, you're doing better than anybody else around you, right? So we're going to promote you. And you seem to be able to talk to non-technical people, which I think was a strength I had. So eventually, you know, you kind of, you grab this lever and you like pull it back a little bit and you say, hey, we went a little too far with the bureaucracy. Let's get a light version of our procedures. You know, just a little stapled together document for small projects. You know, just a few forms, a few committees, a few meetings. And then somebody wakes up and realizes even those meetings aren't getting scheduled. And so cancel the SDLC, fire the PMO, and declare we are agile now. And in most organizations, that just means chaos again. Right? As James said, you know, fire all the testers and this is going to make life better. No, it's not. So that's what was going on there for me. And years later, as you will see, there was a big sort of aha moment for me, which ultimately led to me talking about the fact that what we are really seeking in our careers is joy. And after the book came out, somebody said, hey, Rich, you know Deming, right? Do you know how much Deming talked about joy? And I said, no, I had no idea. This is a hand-drawn artifact, July 20th, 1989, by Deming, where he describes this life journey from birth to death and all the things that happen to us, and talks about the destruction of the individual. And he juxtaposes it against nourishment of the individual. And if anybody wants this, send me a note and I'll send you a copy of this. But look at what he talks about in the nourishment part. Intrinsic motivation, self-esteem, dignity, security, joy in work, joy in learning, a joy to work with, chance for cooperation, no loser, everybody wins. I wanted that. That's why I got into this industry in the first place. And yet, here I was. And so my journey out, because as anybody who knows me well knows, I'm an eternal optimist. If you put me in a room full of manure, I will keep digging because I know there's a pony in there somewhere. And so the journey out led me to authors and books. Not books on technology, though, because quite frankly, technology is trivial compared to how to organize human teams into more effective entities into a more effective organization. So the books I was drawing to were books like Peter Senge's The Fifth Discipline on the art and practice of building learning organization, Peter Drucker's books on management, Tom Peters' book In Search of Excellence, John Naismith's book Megatrends. All of these books were telling me there was a shining city on the hill. They just didn't give me any instructions to get there. Left as an exercise to the reader, but I was determined to find something. And then 2 years after I had become a VP, I had what Franz Johansson will call a click moment. I read a book by a guy named Kent Beck on some weird thing called extreme programming, with a lot of odd practices in it that I wasn't quite sure about. And then I saw a video on an industrial design firm in California called IDEO. Nightline had done an episode on them, and those had happened within just a couple of weeks of one another for me, and suddenly, boom. All of those years of preparation, all of those years of pain prepared me, and I said, I know where I'm going, and I know how I'm going to get there. And that's what happened. And over the next 2 years, and where's Anne-Marie? Ah, there's Anne-Marie. You were there. You were there at the beginning. You were there when it happened, right? Anne-Marie was one of the first people we hired into this crazy new place we had created in my old company where I was the VP of R&D called Interface Systems. Did we fire you, Anne-Marie, or did you quit?
I was doing the .com, so.
Yeah, exactly. That was my whole point, is we probably fired you. But it wasn't personal, was it? No. It was sad. It was a sad day because over 2 years, we had created this phenomenal organization. And then in 2001, the California parent that had purchased us, stock price collapsed by 99%, and they had to shutter every remote office they had, including our Ann Arbor office. And suddenly, I was out of work for the first time since 1973. I went home, I told my wife, I said, honey, I laid off my team, fired good people like Anne-Marie, and she said, they don't need a VP for a team of 0. So I lost my job too. I had to lock the door on the way out. And she said, you're unemployed now? And she had tears. And I said, no, honey, I'm an entrepreneur now. Hang on to that one. She had no idea that entrepreneurship actually paid less than unemployment. And by then we were profitable, and she figured it out. So in 2001, boom, everything taken away from me. Except for one thing. They could not take away what we had learned in those 2 years. And what we had learned is that there isn't a perfect setting for this dial. What we had learned in those 2 years is you can throw this away and replace it with something else that's far more effective. What people thrive in are well-working, well-thought-out systems with simple structures that are simple, repeatable, measurable, visible, that feed human energy and build off of human relationships. And that's what we discovered. And what I want to talk with you the rest of the time I'm with you is about joy. And I want to just poke into joy for me and probably joy for you. Because this word is an unusual word in a business context, isn't it? It's not a word that would come up normally in an executive team meeting, I would doubt. And a lot of people ask me, Rich, where did the joy come from for you? Where did this bubble up from? Why was it that word you chose? And the first time I thought lightly about it, I thought about that 13-year-old. I thought about the kid. I thought about the time I typed something into a computer and it did what I told it to do, and I'm like, wow, this is going to be an amazing journey of imagination and creation and creativity and invention and all that sort of thing. And I thought that's where the joy came from for me. But when I really thought about it, I thought, nope, not it. I had to go back a little bit further. I had to go back to a 10-year-old version of me, when my parents had bought the equivalent of an IKEA bookshelf. It was out in the garage in a box. This was before IKEA was selling in the United States. And they went out to dinner and a movie one night. And my inner engineer fired up. And I went out into the garage and I opened up that box and I built that shelving unit. It was 8 feet wide, it was 6 feet tall. And I was so excited. It was like 50 pieces of wood, 200 nuts, bolts, and screws, 38-page user manual, and all by my 10-year-old self, I put that thing together. And I built it in the garage, and Mom wants it in the living room. So for the next 2 hours, I inched that thing out of the garage, into the driveway, down the sidewalk, into the family room, through the utility room, into the kitchen. I pushed it right onto the wall that Mom wanted in the living room. I set up Dad's books, set up Mom's knickknacks. I wired up the stereo when they walked in the door. I had my mom's favorite album playing, and she cried. And in that moment, I realized joy. This is why we do what we do. This is why we go through all the hard work we do. Joy is service to others. Joy is watching the work of our hearts, our hands, and our minds get out into the world and delight the people for whom it's intended. And I would declare to you, if you're really honest with yourself, that's why you chose this profession. It's why you do the hard work. It's why you put up with all the blood, sweat, and tears and the time away from families. We want to see our work delivered. We want it to be solid. We want it to get out into the world. And the thing I want to contemplate with you today is, does joy matter? Does it produce business results? Can you see it? Can you feel it? Can you touch it? Does it make a difference? And I will tell you, lots of people come to the basement of a parking structure in downtown Ann Arbor, Michigan, by the thousands. This is our tour count at the end of 2016. Over 3,000 people came from all over the planet, and the first thing they see is a declaration from us that physical space matters. That this is the first foray we make into producing higher quality results. We work in a big, open, and collaborative environment, and a lot of people tell us it doesn't work. If you want articles and books to prove that these kind of environments will work, just write me an email. I can send you dozens of them, because everybody in the world, as soon as they come out, sends them to me. But if you really want to know what happens, don't listen to the rest of the talk, because we didn't build an open and collaborative workspace. What we built was an open and collaborative culture. Our workspace is a reflection of the cultural intentions, and the cultural intentions are produce quality results. For us, noise matters. The noise of overhearing other people work. Not the noise of chit-chat, not the noise of what happened in the football game, but the noise of a quality person sitting next to a programmer when the programmer pair says, "Hey, why did you do that?" If the quality people are sitting within earshot of the "why did it do that" comment, I know how you people behave. Why did it do what? And of course, nothing, secret project, move along. No, what happened? What were you doing? What was leading to, right? The noise matters. So we have a very simple rule at Menlo. You cannot wear earbuds while you're working. We want you available to the team. We want you to process this information. For us, proximity matters. You can actually see the teamwork in the room. People working shoulder to shoulder and this is, the team is in charge of the space. They set up the space the way they want. There are no rules, there's no permission, there's no space police, there's no space czar. The team chooses to, for all the years we've been in existence, push the table side to side, front to front. They literally want to be this close to one another. Why? Because the human energy in the room matters. This is what sustains us over time. Now, I love this quote from John Naisbitt. I think it's far more appropriate today than it's ever been, that the greatest advancements that are going to occur in the 21st century, where we're at right now, are not going to occur because of technology. You're not here because of technology. You're here because we want to understand how we work together better. in our roles, in our organizations, in our world. What I love about this quote from John Naisbitt is he wrote it in 1982. I think that's just remarkable. Now I will tell you the way we work is interesting. We work in this close collaborative environment. The team chooses this, and a lot of people invite me into their organizations. They want to show me how they work, and I say, great. And they bring me in, and they walk me through the sea of darkened cubicles. And it's like my ears are ringing, it's so quiet. And the executive pulls me in and says, Rich, this is where our technical team works. They're thinking really deep thoughts right now. Now, as we walk by the cubicles where everyone has their back to the door and they're hunched over their keyboard, they all have headphones and earbuds, so I'm not sure why we're whispering. And then we get to the corner office and the executive closes their door and says, okay, the first thing I want to talk to you about is our communication challenges. Shocking. You think it's because nobody's talking? Oh no, we have all the latest electronics installed. Like, you use electronics for people who are like sitting in the next queue? Well, yeah, we don't want people interrupting one another. Oh, that's interesting. Because when we communicate, we don't use electronics. We use what we like to call high-speed voice technology. It's awesome. It was pre-installed at birth. Vocal cords, tympanic membranes, auditory nerve stimulation of the brain, body language, eyebrows, tonal inflection. If we want to call an all-company meeting at Menlo, do you guys have meetings where you work?
Yes.
Meetings? We hate meetings. We think they're mind-numbing, spirit-sucking, energy-draining devices of management. Now, we do have a few. What's that?
Amen.
Amen, yeah. Tell me what you really think, Rich. So we want to call an all-company meeting. Remember, we're all in a big open room together. This is the way it works. I'm going to say, hey, Menlo. You're going to say, hey, Rich. Hey, Menlo!
Hey, Rich!
And the whole place goes quiet. And we're now in an all-company meeting. Nobody moved. No book the conference room. No CC all emails. No coordination of calendars, you know. Hey, Menlo. Hey, Rich. Conduct the business of the meeting. Say thank you. Boom, all goes quiet. Now, if you ever come to visit, and I hope you do, a big invitation, come and visit. Walk in our front door and just step 3 steps in and go, hey, Menlo. And they all go, you gotta like give it out there. And they'll go, hey, you. And then they'll all go quiet and they'll all stare at you. So you better have something to say when you do this, okay? Now, we do have one meeting a day. It's our daily stand-up meeting. We have a daily stand-up that's called by a dartboard on the wall. The dartboard has an alarm clock. Why a dartboard needs an alarm clock, we have no idea. But it's programmable. We have a lot of programmers, so we programmed it. And at 10 o'clock, bong, 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 bong. Everyone gathers in a circle. You probably saw in the video that big circle. We'll gather 50, 60, 70 people in our stand-up. And we grab the iconic symbol of Menlo, the 2-horned plastic Viking helmet. And that controls the meeting. And this is important because we want a little bit of order. We don't want chaos. We want this to be a stand-up meeting, not a stand-around meeting. And the token passes around the big group of people, and everyone gets a chance to report out. And our stand-up meeting invariably takes 13 minutes for 70 people. The only reason we know is we go look at the dartboard after the token is set down and somebody does the Hill Street Blues closing of be careful out there. And anybody know what Hill Street Blues is? Anybody? Okay, good. 5 people know what Hill Street Blues is. That's awesome. It was an old television show, cops, danger, all that kind of stuff. Be careful out there. And so pass it around 13 minutes. We look at the clock, it says 10:13. I define most organizations to begin a meeting of this size in 13 minutes, let alone call it, start it, assemble it, hold it, give everyone a chance to report out, complete it, get back to work. And now I want to get down into the nitty-gritty of how do we get to quality, but let me just give you a peek in how different my life is now. My life has changed. My kids are now convinced I will never retire. They're like, why would you, Dad? You're having way too much fun. In my old life, if I were here, I'd be getting phone calls incessantly to help heroically solve challenges that were going on back at the office. Now, nothing. Oh, they'll text me little interesting things. You know, my business co-founder was texting me about challenges in the flight, and the guy who was going through TSA who had 3 large Bowie knives in his carry-on bag, and he was trying to convince the TSA people it was okay because they were still in the original packaging. Guy probably hasn't flown since 1966. But you know, this is the stuff I get now. We don't have emergencies anymore. I didn't think that was possible. I would have never dreamed of an emergency-free world, but quite frankly, and what we do for a living is we design and develop software for other companies. It's not Menlo building software for itself to take to market or anything. We're building software for other companies. We're a contract software design and development firm, and the last time our team remembers a software emergency is 2004. That to me is a breathtaking statistic. Our phones don't ring off the hook with problems, and I've made no allocation of my team of having people set aside to fix emergencies. I used to allocate 30% of my staff in the old days, in the chaotic days, to fixing problems that we had created in the past. And I have no allocation for that anymore. We don't need it. It's not that we're bug-free, we're emergency-free. Huge difference in my life personally and in the lives of our people. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we do is how our people care for one another. Caring about each other matters. The way we do this is to bolt them together all day. 2 programmers, 1 computer, 2 QA people, 1 system, 2 what we call high-tech anthropologists, which I'll talk about in a second. We pair our people together and caring begins to emerge. It feels safe. These are things that are important in creating an environment. The idea that you want to create something new, you want imagination, creativity, innovation, invention, and you don't have a psychologically safe workplace is nonsensical. You have to stay in the prefrontal cortex if you're going to do this. This is our most human part, and that's the part of our brain that gets shut down when adrenaline and cortisol go into our system. We have to build trust. And as far as I know, in my life history, I've only learned there is one way to build trust between human beings, and that is simply to spend time together. There is no other formula. You can't say, I trust you. It doesn't work that way. Trusting another human being may be one of our most finely tuned senses of smell. I always picture that there was some guy in the old days who said, yeah, run up over that hill, it'll be safe. And there was a Tyrannosaurus Rex on the other side. And those people who trusted inappropriately were weeded out. And if we get to trust, as Patrick Lencioni would talk about in 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, we can actually get to productive conflict, which is where quality begins to soar. I have watched our team members arguing vociferously, not with each other, but about a problem, about an idea, about a solution, maybe up at the whiteboard, maybe 4 to 6 of them up at a board and just arguing, and then noontime comes and they look at each other and say, hey, you want to go out to lunch? And they walk out the door almost arm in arm. And then they come back after lunch and they go back up to the whiteboard and boom, they're back at it again. I just find that just remarkable to watch that on our team. And this is a favorite of mine in your world. The machines and how we organize them matters as well. You know, later I will talk about that programmers have as many different definitions for done as Eskimos have words for snow, right? And when you, as testers or QA people, find something and you go back to the programming team and say, hey, that thing you were working on 3 months ago, I found a problem with it. What's the most likely response from the programmers? What's that? Yeah, it must be something you did. Yeah, it works on my machine. Yeah, it works on my machine. I will tell you, if you ever have a programmer, from here on forward, if they ever say, it worked on my machine, grab their machine and ship it to the customer. That may be your biggest takeaway from this whole conference, right? Rich said, grab the machine and ship it to the customer. And they can never say it worked on my machine again because you took their machine. Right? In our world, because we pair and we switch the pairs every 5 days, this is kind of remarkable. Our programmers can't have their own computer. It's nonsensical, right? You and I work together for a week and then it's the two of us. We're switching computers all the time. So nobody has their own computer. Nobody has their own table, their own desk, their own chair, their own computer. This is what you remember from 18 years ago, isn't it, Anne-Marie? And so, and the machines are all different. Drives our IT people crazy. Different screen sizes, different processor speeds and configurations, different operating system versions, different browser versions. Why? Because I will guarantee you, if you find some product that you love, that then you go run Chrome on Windows 7 and it doesn't work, guaranteed the programmer, why would they do that? My favorite browser is Firefox. They should be using Firefox. They can just download Firefox. No, right? And the rigor and discipline that has emerged and yet still seems like a frontier, which is just mind-blowing to me. We're not really teaching it at the college level. I'm finally starting to see some evidence of this at places like MIT and the University of Michigan and probably other places as well. But it's stunning to me that we're not teaching some of the most fundamental methods that can improve quality dramatically, like test-driven design and automated unit testing frameworks. I mean, they're giving lip service to it now, but the discipline of that is revolutionizing software design and development. It's incredible. That rigor and discipline, as much as we might have fun at Menlo, as much as we might laugh as we go through the day, the rigor and discipline is what really makes the difference. And then how we communicate. You heard how we communicate with each other, but it's just as important to think about how do we communicate with the people who don't know what we know? How do we communicate with the sponsors of our project, in our case, our customers? And what we do is we change the equation again here. We run weekly show and tells with our client, which kind of makes sense. It sounds like a demo, except it's the opposite of what you'd expect. Because we look at all of these things and we say, look, there are important things we could do. And so what we do is we put our customer front and center. We have them show us the work we did the previous 5 days. We don't show it to them, they show it to us. And if you've ever had the experience of putting a customer at the keyboard and the mouse, and they start moving the cursor over a place you didn't want them to, and you're like, oh. Yeah, we want that honesty, we want that transparency, even with the people who, in this case, are paying us to do the work. Or when Anne-Marie and I worked together before, it was in an environment where we were the captive product development team servicing the product managers in the organization. But the honesty that occurs in this moment matters. And Anne-Marie, yes, 18 years later, we are still planning with little folded pieces of paper. We have rebuilt the organ transplant information system at the University of Michigan health system. That was a 3.5-year multi-million-dollar project. We built one of the leading medical devices on the planet with folded pieces of paper because we think that if we create systems that humans can adapt to and understand, they will actually participate. So what do? We write down by hand on a piece of paper what we think the customer might want. We estimate it in hours, and then we fold the card to the size of the estimate. So an 8-hour card is half as big as 16. Do you see the spatial relationship? Let me show you what a 4-hour card looks like in case you're not getting it yet. And then we plan against a budget. And this is the budget. And the empty box represents a place you can put these cards. Do you see how this works? Time, 1 week. Humans, 2 people. budget, 80 hours times whatever burden rate or billing rate you want to talk about, it translates to hours and dollars and people. And that's what happens here. And the conversation that ensues over a simple tool, because let me teach you our project management system, just in case you couldn't infer it from my little demo earlier. This is the add function. What? This is the delete function. You got it now? Can you imagine edit? Okay. So what we like about these kind of systems, and a lot of people, they look at us, they're like, Rich, you're like the Amish of software development. Like, why aren't you using electronics? Why aren't you doing this on a touchscreen table? Why aren't you, like, first of all, that would cost millions of dollars. Secondly, it wouldn't invite participation, which is what we're really looking for, because ultimately what we want isn't fighting with the tool. It's creating a meaningful conversation, because this is hard. Deciding what the priorities are, deciding what's in the plan, which is what goes on the sheet, and quite frankly, just as important or maybe more important, what isn't in the plan is what's important. And the clarity that results from these simple handwritten cards is important. Why do we like handwriting? Because we believe it is impossible not to read something you've written by hand. Whereas a document that's cut and pasted, drag and drop, throw a couple of attachments in an email, it is likely no one has read any of that stuff, including the person who created and sent it. And then, if we really want to get honest with ourselves, we have to get to almost an uncomfortable place of transparency. So we put the plans up on the wall under people's names so we know what's expected of them. We plan a 40-hour work week for each pair. It's insane. We've worked 16 years at this, and we work 40-hour work weeks. We never work weekends. We never deny or delay vacation requests. And when you leave the office for a vacation, we cut you off electronically from the office through peer pressure so you can actually enjoy your vacation. And we put the cards next to the day we expect them to complete based on the estimates that came from the people who do the work. We have programmer lanes like these in purple. We have high-tech anthropology lanes, which I haven't talked about. We have QA lanes of tasks here. The yarn indicates where we are in the week as the yarn moves down like a piece of clockwork. And the color-coded sticky dots on the cards connote the honesty of our system. When you start, as programmer pair, you start working on the card, you put a yellow dot on the card. When you think you're done, remember, lots of definitions for done. You've probably heard many of them. I probably used most of them. Programmers saying, well, it's done. I mean, it's not done. Well, it's ready, but it's not finished. Well, it's finished, but it's not complete. Well, it's complete, but it's not installable. Well, it's installable, but it's not deliverable. So in our world, our programmers can only self-declare they think they're done with an orange dot. Orange is a call to the QA team to come in and check your work immediately, not 3 months later, right in the moment. As quick as they can, get over there, check the work. QA begins the checking process. QA likes what they see. Green dot with a sign off. Endorphin rush for the programmers. Done. Ready for show and tell. If QA doesn't like what they see, red dot. Endorphin rush for the QA team. Now, I will tell you, this is a fun moment for me because most times I give presentations to audiences, there might be one person in the crowd who's willing to admit they're part of a QA team. All right, and they'll kind of go, yeah. But let me stick up for you guys. Because I know in your heart, more than anything else, what you want is to break it while it's still in the room. Because you take it personally when the broken thing gets out into the world. And if we don't have that, we ain't got nothing. So I appreciate everything you do and your heart for what you do for a profession. Because, you know, I don't know what happened at Equifax, and I don't know what happened at Yahoo, but here's what I do know. You can't run the world anymore without well-working software. So the responsibility our industry has yet to fully step up to is probably going to start with all of you. Empathy matters. Back to that John Naisbitt quote. Everything we build in one way, shape, form, or another affects people. And so we had to invent an entirely new practice. We have a card-carrying member of that practice up here. Molly, wave your hand, Molly. Molly is a card-carrying high-tech anthropologist, Circle R registered trademark, Menlo Innovations, U.S. Patent and Trade Office. And our high-tech anthropologists empathize with the people who will one day use the software we were designing and developing. Their job, go out into the world and study the people we intend to serve so that one day we can delight them with the designs that our team creates. And it all starts with this thing called high-tech anthropology. And Katie, this one's for you, because you opened up this conversation this morning. We didn't plan this together. How you pay your team states something about how you value the different roles. At Menlo, this is our roles and level chart. So we're kind of weird in a lot of different ways. We take transparency to the nth degree. We do open book finance, so everybody gets to see all the numbers of the business. And this is the open book pay channel board. Whichever box you're in, from associate 1 to 3, consultant 1 to 5, senior consultant 1 to 5, principal consultant 1 to 5, whatever box you're in exactly defines your pay level. So everybody who's here in this little box knows that they're making exactly the same amount of money as every one of their peers, regardless of role. Programmer consultant 3s make exactly what quality assurance consultant 3s, high-tech anthropologists, project managers, everybody who's a consultant 3 makes same, men, women, all the same, in a very open and collaborative environment. So we broke that mold. And I will tell you, by doing this, we send a message to everybody, our customers and our team, that quality matters. And ultimately, why did we do all of this? Because I love this quote from Deming. It spoke so much to that moment in my drop of disillusionment days that all anyone asks for is a chance to work with pride. I want to say, you know, I posed a question at the beginning. Joy does matter. As Deming said so well, change is not necessary. Survival is not mandatory. Thank you very much. I'm happy to take questions. I think we have a few more minutes.
Yeah, we have a few minutes for questions, so please, if you have a few questions.
So, how many days vacation do we get at Menlo Innovation?
Everybody comes on with 4 weeks. So we don't do this. You know, you get 1 week when you start and 2 weeks after 2 years. Everybody starts with 4 weeks of paid vacation and 11 paid holidays. Yep.
So how do you do this in a virtual setting?
Yeah, so we've done a few experiments with that. Run the Experiment is a big part of our environment. We just completed a project with a firm out in Los Angeles where 4 of their programmers worked collaboratively with 6 of ours. We put a lot of emphasis on don't wreck anybody's dinner time, right? Which we think is really important. Spending time with your family relieves stress and all that kind of stuff, keeps your home life in order. So what we did was the 6 programmers from Menlo, we're in Ann Arbor, Michigan, Eastern time zone. They came in the morning at 8:30 or so, and they paired with each other, so 3 distinct pairs. When the 4 programmers out in Los Angeles came in the morning at 8:30, it was 11:30 our time. A couple of our guys were assigned to pair with them over the wire, and so they would actually, one pair would eat lunch a little bit early. So by the time the California folks came in, they would have eaten lunch. They split apart, put on headphones, video so they can see each other in a screen share, and we paired across the country like that. And they spent the next 6 hours from 11:30 our time to 5:30 our time or so, maybe 6 o'clock, but that's about it, pairing with them across the nation. And then when we left to go home to have dinner with our families, the pair out in California would come together and complete one half or the other of the work that was started by these two pairs. And every week we were switching the pairs as to who paired with whom across the wire and within Menlo and within their environment. So everybody got to see all the code, which we think is really important. No code ownership in our world, it's also code stewardship. And they got a chance to actually feel confident that the work we were doing was something they could support going forward. So we'll continue to run those kind of experiments. I think ultimately for me, regardless of whether you can do something as crazy as that or something else, the fundamental encouragement I would give to you on that issue is simply this. Focus hard on building the human relationships between the members of your team, even if they're in disparate locations. You got to get them together. The conference phone stuff is horrible. Most video conferencing systems aren't much better than 7-Eleven security systems, right? And so you don't get to build a human relationship. I think we got to know, like, what's your favorite beer? What's your favorite sports team? How many kids do you have? What kind of sports are they involved in? I think it's important. We sent our programmers out to California for a couple of weeks to be with their team, and they sent their people to Menlo to be with our team for a couple of weeks, and then we worked together collaboratively for 18 months with a few trips in between to just keep that thing going. Yes?
When do you open an office in the Northwest?
Yeah, if I said 2 months from now, for every time I heard that question, we probably would have offices all over the world now. Right now we're working on a 10-year vision for the company. Where are we going to be in 2027? Right now, part of that vision is not to create remote offices, but rather to collaborate with customers who want to build their version of this, and we've done that very successfully because and I will tell you, the pairing is the magic, just as we were describing here. By the time we got done with that California project, the project wasn't actually done. This is a project that's central to the operation of that company, and they will continue moving it forward from this point on, but the pattern, the systems pattern is set with them. They transformed it, while doing the work, they transformed their own culture very, very willingly. Yes?
So for like non-VPs or non-managers, like I couldn't go back and change workstations and post other people's pay or anything. Like for associate employees, are there any good takeaways you think that?
Yeah, if you wanted to try some collaboration experiments, book a conference room for 2 months. Just say, hey, we're taking this conference room for a couple of months. We're going to all get together in that conference room, and don't worry about our cubes. You don't have to tear them down or anything like that. I've watched people do this quite successfully. Now, when I talk to the leaders in these organizations, and they ask me the same question, because the leaders have the same concerns. They're like, I once had a team that was very excited, but the more they came to visit us, forgive the language, the more pissed they were. Because they were like, our bosses would never let us work like this. And I'm like, really? Are you sure? And they're like, oh, absolutely. And I said, why are they sending you here? We don't know. I'm like, well, why don't you have them come in and talk to me? I can apply my reality distortion field on them. And so they did. I had the CEO, the VP of marketing, VP of sales, head of HR, and they all came in and spent a day with me. And at the end of the day, you know what they said? Oh, this is awesome, but our technical team would never go for this. Like, oh, let me introduce you to one another. So don't ever doubt. What I would only encourage you to think about it, because I understand what you're saying. Like, I get excited about this, Rich, but I got 5 levels of people above me that aren't going to cotton to this. Don't ever doubt. I guess empathize with the challenges they face. Learn to speak their language. Find out what problems they're facing, because their behaviors are probably often rational, even though they feel irrational. I always thought, as I was climbing the career ladder, that the person above me was an idiot. And everything would be perfect once I got up to that next perch and it was me up there. And then all of a sudden I'd look around and go, oh, this is really hard up here. I'm the idiot now. So anyways, but I would just say, one way to do it is run small experiments. Just try things, see, if people see you like excited, walking with a spring in your step, getting more work done, better results, and there are very few upper level leaders that make them stop doing that, but it is something to think about. I thought, yes, Katie.
So
Sure.
the same person.
Yep, so Katie's basically saying that this might be very specific to a certain type of people. I agree. Our evidence suggests this is almost requires introversion to work. I said that right. This almost exclusively only works for introverts. We couldn't function with extroverts who are in broadcast mode all the time. We need the deep thinking introverts. And what we found is that the introverts don't prefer sensory deprivation and library quiet. What they prefer are fewer, safer, deeper relationships with other human beings, and they get that here. And so do we believe that, so let me just say this. I'm very passionate about what we've done here. It works. In no way am I telling you that you should make your organization look like mine. All I'm suggesting to you is there is a better way of doing things than is customary, and it's your job to find it like it was mine. I'm just showing you a living, breathing example, and you have to figure out for your own organization, your own, even yourself, what is it that appeals to you? And ultimately, you may end up losing people, but the first time I did this, when I was with Anne Marie, I was a VP of a tired old public company where everybody was in beautiful offices with oak doors that closed or nice cubicles, and it was library quiet, and I pulled them out of this and put them in a big open room. And the first time I suggested this, the first guy who said anything was Gil, and he said, "Rich, blood, mayhem, murder, don't do us." And and I didn't lose a single one of them. It was remarkable. I thought I'd lose half of my team, and I didn't lose a single one. But this is, there's some foundational acts of leadership that have to occur in any kind of behavioral change system. The real question I think you have to ask yourself, first and foremost, for all of your organizations is, number one, turn your focus externally. Ask yourself, your organization, your leaders, your team, who do we serve and what does delight look like for them? And how can we systematically organize ourselves inside to produce that delight in the world? Because if you start focusing things externally, it's amazing. People stop thinking about how big's my desk, how big is my office, what's my title, what's my pay level, all that kind of stuff. Those things begin to take a back seat to this purpose-driven approach that says, who do we serve and what does delight look like? Because ultimately, I fundamentally believe this is why we got in this industry in the first place. How am I doing?
Well, we're out of time, but we are having a reception just outside here, and so hopefully you'll stick around.
Let me offer up one final exhortation. It'll take about a minute. And it is simply this. I know why you come to conferences like this. Because you're hoping beyond hope that something is going to happen new and different, and maybe you can help lead it. So let me offer you this sort of final encouragement. It's out of the book. I do want you to buy the book, but ultimately that's my publisher's thing. I just want you to read it. You can borrow one copy and share it amongst all of you. Easy change is neither lasting nor meaningful. I don't think you're here for easy change. If you choose joy, know that you're at the first steps of an arduous journey, perhaps the equivalent of climbing Mount Everest. Changing human behavior is one of the most difficult efforts you'll ever undertake, and perhaps the most rewarding. There will be storms, setbacks, disappointments. You will need others to join you to help you when you falter or slip. The journey to joy at work is personal. It has to be. You want a job or an organization that brings you joy. You want to enjoy that good kind of tired at the end of each day, knowing you made your life a little bit better today, and also those around you and those you serve. Along the way, you transform yourself into the person you always dreamed you could be. You get in touch with what makes your heart sing. You draw others to your flame. Those closest to you start to notice a difference in who you've become. You'll start to see joy, feel joy, and almost touch joy within your entire team. Everyone is now feeling his or her own version of what you are feeling. Together, you begin to speak confidently about your culture, your values, and your mission. There's a unified purpose and a way to deliver it. Now nothing seems impossible. Finally, with this journey, you see change in the world. The customers you touch, the products and services you deliver, the community that interacts with you, the people who help you tell your story, they become a part of the joy too. They want to be you. They want to be with you. They ask you how to achieve the joy that you've achieved. More than anything, as you depart back into your own offices and your own organizations, I wish you that joy. Thank you very much.